Now, before we rig anything, it's a good idea to make sure our scene is as clean as possible for a very smooth rigging process. So we have this really neat asset that you have built and textured with Justin. So now it's time to start thinking about how this airship will fly around in our environment. Our rig will consist of a main control to drive the entire ship, but then we'll want secondary controls for our engines, for the gun underneath, and any other objects we'll want to have animated. Now, before we get into that step, we'll first, again, clean up our scene. We'll also make sure we're getting the best performance possible. Let's go ahead and start with that. Currently, we're under Viewport 2.0, which gives us an amazing display. However, it is very intensive. So what we'll do is head over to the Render menu in our viewport and switch over to the default quality renderer. Great, so we should start to notice a difference now. So we navigate. And I'll also press the 5 key to go into shaded mode. Alright, much better. Now the next step is to work on cleaning up all of these objects. And then what I like to do is just head over to the show menu and show all objects. That way, once we're done deleting history and freezing our transforms, we can then go in and remove any objects we don't need to optimize the scene. Let's head over to Window, Outliner. This will give us an idea of all of the objects we'd like to keep and clean and all of the objects we may want to remove. So at this point, what I'll do is start with the hose. So right now, its transforms are ideal. If we wanted to get back to this exact spot that we've built the hose in, it's just a matter of zeroing all of these values out, which they currently are zeroed, so we're good to go here. So the next step is to look for any extra nodes that we'll want to optimize. You can see that it has an extrude node, and that was used to create this mesh. However, once we are set on the shape and we know that we will no longer need to use this node, let's go ahead and clean it up by heading over to Edit, Delete by Type History with the object selected, and you'll see that that will remove that extra node that does nothing for us but possibly causes performance issues. With one node, we wouldn't notice a difference at all. However, as those start to pile up, then that's when it becomes an issue. Another reason why we want to remove history is because those nodes may interfere with the behavior of objects we'll want rigged. Alright, so we're good to go. It's clean and we're ready to move on to another object. Let's go ahead and take a look at our platform group. So you can see that it has transforms we'll want to clean up. The main reason being, if we were to zero these out, watch what's going to happen. It's going to shift the platform. However, we'll want to keep it in the spot that it was imported in, the spot that we've built it in. So with that being said, we can choose Modify, Freeze Transformations, and that will zero all of these values out so that we don't have to worry about this object being offset. I moved over to the Freeze Transformation options in order to double check to make sure each setting has been reset, which we can do under the Edit menu. So let's now go ahead and choose Freeze, and we're good to go here. We may get a warning that lets us know that we do have instance geometry that's tied to our platform group. So instances, we wouldn't want to freeze those at all because they are instanced for a reason to behave a certain way. So that's just fine. We don't have to worry about that warning. We will get the same warning when we freeze our airship, which we're about to do right now. So let's go ahead and move to our ship group and we'll expand it. And what we'll do is grab all of the objects underneath our ship group, except for our 3D texture node. We don't want that to be frozen at all. Otherwise, the cool graphic we added in the front of our ship will shift. So Maya needs the transform history on this object. So again, grabbing everything underneath the group except for that node, we'll go ahead and first delete history, and then we can go in and freeze our transformations. And there's that same warning about freezing instances. Okay, so our objects are clean. What that means is we can now think about any objects we may want to remove. So that would be the hose profile and the hose path object. These two were used to create the hose, but once the hose is built, we no longer need them. So selecting both of these, we can now safely remove them. I say safely because if we hadn't deleted history on our hose, that would in turn delete our hose geometry if we had removed the objects that created the hose. Okay, great. Well, at this point, what I'd like to do is go in and actually hide the platform so we can just focus on rigging our airship. And then we'll come back to the platform when it's time to create joint systems to deform the hose. So with the platform selected, I'm going to go ahead and head over to my display tab to create a display layer, which you'll find underneath the channel box tab. So let's go ahead and create a new layer with the selected object using this last icon. We'll double click on the layer so we can go ahead and rename this, and we'll keep it straightforward. We'll simply call this platform underscore layer and choose save. Beautiful. So now we can go in and hide this platform piece. It's also a good idea to store the hose geometry and hose end piece under the same layer. Again, in order to remove from our view any objects we're not ready to rig at this time. So selecting again both pieces, we can go ahead and store them, and it's also a good idea taking a look at the hose end piece to go ahead and freeze it. Let's go ahead and just take care of that. Notice it also has inputs that we can go ahead and clean up, so we don't want to overlook that at all. Alright, great. So we're good to go. Selecting both, we'll right click on our layer and choose Add Selected Objects. Now for the ship, you can see that it has transforms on the main ship group. We're not going to freeze this in this position. Instead, we're going to bring this ship back to its origin. It's a lot easier to rig from the center of the scene, mainly because if we need to mirror any of our controls, it's just a matter of using reciprocal values. Alright, so with the ship group selected, let's go ahead and zero these values. Great. So guess what? Our scene is clean. We're getting some great performance now. And now we're ready to get in and start building our control object to drive our airship. So let's move to the next lesson and take care of that step.